Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing something new. We'll be looking at two Super Action Statues JoJo's Bizarre Adventure figures. As usual, we will be unboxing the figure, looking at all the parts, as well as some different poses we can put them in. After that, we'll look at the shipping, how much it costs to get him from Amiami in Japan to my house here in Australia. As I said, today we'll be doing something a little different by looking at two figures from the Super Action Statue JoJo's Bizarre Adventure line. First, we have the DIO Brando box. As usual on most action figures, you'll be able to see on the box a bunch of different poses, as well as some of the accessories that come with him. Next, let's take a look at the World box. I'll be doing the rest of the video like this. First, showing off DIO, then right after showing off the same parts for the World. These figures are quite tall, standing at about 25 centimeters, but they have a lot of really great detail that I'll be able to show you later on. Let's start getting these figures open, beginning here with DIO. These figures both come with two individual compartments inside the box. The first contains the figure and the additional parts, and the second contains the base and the stand. The arm for this figure is really interesting. It's quite long and very sturdy. Unlike most figures, it's actually made of metal instead of plastic, which makes it a little harder to bend. I'll be opening up the main compartment here first, so you can get a better look at the figure. Before, this line only contained two figures, that being a Kujo Jotaro figure, as well as a Star Platinum figure. But recently, they've announced and started to release new figures in this line. The first in this new line are both here, DIO and the World, but they have announced Yoshikage Kira with Killer Queen, as well as Higashikata Josuke with Crazy Diamond. Because of the large price tag, I was initially a little hesitant to start buying figures from this line, but after I've started to receive the first four that released, I'm very happy with how they turned out, and I think I will be buying the next ones. Taking DIO out of the box here, you can see that there's a lot of great detail with the paint, and the sculpt is really amazing. I think Medicos really hit it out of the park with this one. Taking a look at the World here, we'll be opening him up in the same way. As I said, they both come with two compartments. As mentioned, I already own the first four in this series, so later on I'll be showing a size comparison between the World and Star Platinum, as well as DIO and Jotaro. Also, between the release of the initial two and now DIO and the World, they've changed how the stands work. I'll be showing that off a little more later on. If any of you have visited my MyFigureCollection page, you may have noticed I'm quite the JoJo fan. I lived, worked, and studied in Japan for about 3 years. During that time, I spent a lot of time collecting JoJo's Bizarre Adventure merchandise. I collect the manga, art books, posters, and of course, figures. In the future, I might make a video about my collection. If that's something you'd be interested in, please leave a comment in what kind of things you'd like to see from my collection. Next, I wanted to show off some of the different joints and how they move on the figure. As I said, these figures are quite expensive, and they don't disappoint when it comes to how maneuverable the joints between the arms, legs, and neck are. These figures also have joints between their abdomen, which means you can lean them back and forth pretty easily. If you have any questions about these figures, please feel free to ask them in the comments below. I'd be happy to help as much as I can. Okay, let's move on to looking at some additional parts that came with the figures. We have a lot of different parts to look at. First, let's start with DIO. Both DIO and the World come with an extra head. They also include a lot of different hand parts. DIO's special parts include the collar you just saw there, as well as some knives you'll be seeing later on. Not only do they both come with a lot of different hands, as you can see here, the hands are really well painted. Keeping in line with the detail for the rest of the figure, the hand parts also have impeccable features. They have subtle work of red for blood, as well as creases along the back of the fingers. As I said, they both come with a lot of extra hand parts. These include fists for both the left and the right hand, as well as open palms and grasping. Coming up here, we actually have a special part for DIO. with this hand part, he can actually hold a knife between his fingers. And last here for DIO's hand parts, we have a pointing finger for his right hand. Looking closer at one of the special parts, we have one of DIO's knives. He comes with 6 in the box. Moving on, let's look at the world. Here we have his alternate head, which is more aggressive, so I think it fits better for a fighting pose. As with DIO, the detail on the world is incredible. Looking closely at these parts, you can see the attention to detail they have on the little sigils on the back of his hand. If you get the chance to see any of the figures of this line in person, take the time to inspect the detail. It is incredible how much they fit into these figures. These figures are about 3 times the amount of the regular Super Action statue line. Because of that, there is a certain expectation that they meet a level of quality, and in my opinion, they definitely meet that level. That is subjective though, and we will be looking at prices later, so you may not agree with me. Lastly, we have 2 special parts for the world that are actually the drums on his back. Looking here, we can see that they fit both on the left and the right side of his back, so I'll just be showing how to put them in now. After this, I'll be showing what comes inside the other packet, as well as setting up the world and DIO. Because the world and DIO setup is exactly the same procedure, I will only be showing off DIO. Next, let's take a look at what comes in the other compartment. First is a support sheet, which is only in Japanese unfortunately. Next is a simple 1-page instructional sheet, which shows all the different areas of the figure which move. Both look the same on the world and DIO. Next, we have the base, which is quite a large round base. It is quite simple being just this reflective black. I wish it was a little more interesting. Here we have the metal arm I was talking about. I tried to bend it here to give you an example. As you can see, I have to grab from both ends and put a lot of pressure on it just to get it to move a little bit. And last we have a plastic piece that attaches the arm to the back of the figure. Basically like an Android if you're familiar. Now, let's get DIO set up. When setting up figures from this line, I highly suggest just taking a few minutes to bend the stand before you put it on. This little step will really make it a lot easier to put the figure in poses you want to later on. If you don't do this, I find that the figure always stands a little bit off the base, instead of standing in the middle of the base. I also find it's especially important if you want to do poses where the character is in the air. If you don't, the figure will actually be off balance and either fall forwards or backwards, depending on the way the arm is standing. After you do this step though, it makes your life a whole lot easier. I'd say it's not as easy as finding the sweet spot like an arm on an Android, but this arm gives you the freedom to find the exact spot you want your figure to be in. Okay, now that he's set up, let's actually take a look at him next to the Jotaro Kujo figure. As you can see here, DIO is just a tiny bit taller than Jotaro. Even though Jotaro's legs are split, if you put them together and have them side by side, DIO is just that fraction taller. Looking here, we can see at the front there is nothing at DIO's waist. The stand actually goes in the back. Compare that to Jotaro here. As you can see, there's a claw around his chest. For both Jotaro and Star Platinum, the stand does not go into the back of them, but in fact wraps around them. Let's take a look at the world setup next. Here we have him on his base. As you can see, he's not perfectly centered. That's because I didn't spend the time bending the metal before this. Taking a look again side by side, you can see the world again is just that little bit taller than Star Platinum. Looking closer now, you can see that there's nothing around the world's waist. But on Star Platinum, we still have that claw. Okay, next, let's take a look at these figures in a few poses. As I said, I ordered these figures off Amiami, which is a website based in Japan that ships figures to basically anywhere around the world. I'm going to do a breakdown of the price, but first I'm going to explain how the shipping works. So if you know how it works, skip to this timestamp. Right now in Australia, you have 4 options for delivery. First is EMS, which is done by Japan Post. This has tracking and can be reasonably fast, but it usually is quite expensive. The next is DHL. This is the fastest option and in my experience is cheaper than EMS. Next is Air Small Packet, which is specifically for smaller orders. It's the cheapest, but takes the longest and doesn't track outside of Japan. Last is Air Parcel, which works the same as Air Small Parcel, but is for bigger packages. Now you understand the basics, let's take a look at how much it cost for this package. As you can see, this month's order had a lot of items inside the package. Because of that, the shipping will be a little more expensive, but this is actually a good thing. This will be the first time I'm showing off how much it costs to ship outside of Air Small Packet. Looking here, I took a screenshot of the 3 quotes I was given for EMS, DHL, and Air Parcel. In this instance, the prices for the shipping were actually really similar between the 3. In situations like these, I tend to go with EMS. As I said, for this order, I used EMS. The total for everything in this order was 57,830 yen, which at time of recording is about $642 Australian. Shipping was 10,480 yen, which is roughly $116 Australian, and finally Australian GST, which was 6,831 yen, which is about $76 Australian. Do remember that the GST will be affected by the shipping option you choose. Altogether, it came to 75,141 yen, which is $834.53 Australian. This is the single most expensive package I've had shipped to Australia. For those of you who are new to buying figures, I hope my videos give you some idea to what the prices will be and what you can expect when ordering from Amiami. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. I hope to make a new video real soon, so if you do subscribe, that'll be put into your feed as soon as I post it. See you in the next one. Bye.